economy, which means doing things to streamline and simplify and stimulate the economy, not just in a fiscal stimulus fashion, but in other ways of encouraging economic growth. Why do you have to do both taxes and entitlement cuts? Because the discretionary part of the budget is not even as big as the deficit now. Now, the discretionary part is all the things that the appropriations bills wrangle over every year. And let me just put it in very stark terms. If you stop, and there will be something in here for everybody, to like or hate, so I'll premise this with that. Half, roughly, of the discretionary side is defense spending. If you stop all defense spending, okay, so close Joint Base Lewis-McChord, close Everett Home Port, close Whidbey Island, close Bangor, close all those, shut them down. Stop, no more bullets. You can't even fly the troops home. No more war, no more bullets, no more training bases, no new weapon systems, stop all of that. Shut down the VA hospitals. No more service to our veterans. Just shut them down. Tell the folks go home. Close the national parks. Stop all federal government transportation spending. Stop all Coast Guard missions. If you're in trouble at sea, you drown. Stop the work to control flooding anywhere in the country, any federal work. Well, in the Midwest and all the floods they've seen, stop that. Stop FEMA disaster relief to tornado victims, to hurricane victims, etc. Stop all federally funded cancer research, all federally funded diabetes research, all federally funded fill-in-the-blank healthcare research. Stop all of that. The list goes on and on and on, and if you do all of that, you're still in deficit. You're still in deficit. You have to address the two big elephants in the room, and that's revenue and that's entitlements. And I think personally that we need to raise taxes, as I mentioned, not dramatically, but on everybody. The idea that there would be no new taxes is rather absurd, I think, given the countries and the jam it's in. And so too the idea that we won't touch entitlements is absurd. And why is it absurd? Because everybody in this room owes a responsibility to our kids and our grandkids. And if we don't step up to the plate, and it's central to the theme of this book and to what I tried to do in Congress, we pass that debt on to those kids. And people get really mad. By God, don't touch my entitlement spending, fill in the blank, whatever it is, Medicare, Social Security, etc. I paid into that and you owe it to me. The government made a promise. Those kids and grandkids who now have $14.5 trillion of debt on their backs, they never made you that promise. And we are going to ask them to pay for those so-called entitlements during a time when they're going to compete with 1.5 billion people soon in China, over 1 billion people in India, who will work twice as hard for half the money and are every bit as smart. And on top of the fiscal deficit, the book talks about, we have over a $2 trillion infrastructure deficit. And on top of that, we have personal debt. And on top of that, we have leftover cleanup of military sites like Hanford, etc., etc., etc. That list goes on, and the states and the local municipalities and our school districts are deferring infrastructure as we speak because they can't afford to repair. Go up to UW and look at some of their deferred infrastructure projects. In that climate, when our country's facing that difficulty, it seems to me there's only one legitimate response from good patriotic citizens, and that is, how can I help? Not, it's not my fault, not I want it, not don't touch this, not don't touch that, but how can I help? And I think the answer of how we can help is we all pitch in together, and we have a moral obligation and a strategic reason to do so, because obviously you can't stop all of our defense industry tomorrow. Obviously you can't shut down our VA hospitals. Obviously you don't want to shut down the national parks and etc. But if the deficit exceeds all that spending, we've got to get there. So we start with that, as if that's not pleasant enough. And then I move on to education. Education, I'm a teacher. My father was a public school teacher. I passionately believe in education. But I think the core responsibility for education comes from parents being involved with their kids. And that means turning off the television set. Average kids in America today are watching over 7 hours a day, according to the Pew study. 7 hours a day. And it's not just the content, it's the passivity of the interaction. Human beings are meant to interact. We're meant to challenge, to experiment, to try new things, and often to fail at that. If you have the crazy television on all the time with unfettered access to whatever channel, how can kids learn in an active, interactive way? We also need to be more selective in how we choose our teachers. If you look at the McKinsey report about international competitors, for example, in Korea, it's very selective to become a teacher. They limit the numbers of spots. They're highly sought after. It's very, very competitive. You have to be the best and the brightest to be a teacher. And if you say to yourself, is there anything more precious in the world to us than our kids? The answer is nothing's more precious. Then how do we justify not being absolutely scrupulous in selecting and training our teachers? I think we need to then pay those selected teachers better. Especially, I believe in merit pay. But I also believe that everybody in this room, at least at some point, had a bad teacher. A really bad teacher. A teacher who crushed your desire to learn or others' desire to learn. And that's absolutely inexcusable, and we need to rid ourselves and our children of those teachers if they can't be remediated. Now, in all of that, you'll see there's plenty to tick off lots of special interest groups. On the one hand, I'm saying pay teachers more, which some teachers might like. On the other hand, I'm saying merit pay and frankly, do away with tenure, which folks might not like. Similar kind of approach to energy, similar kind of approach to healthcare, etc. And so if you have a chance and you're interested, I've got a few copies here. It's available. It's a shameless plug here at this point. It's available at lulu.com, which is a print-on-demand publisher. The premise, again, is we have to solve these problems. The solutions I'm putting forward may not be easy. They may not be to your liking or to other people's liking. But I would just invite people to say, show me an alternative, and I'm happy to consider it. But if we believe that education is not so important, if we believe we can somehow solve this budget situation without sacrifice on all parts, terrific. But I don't think it's an honest belief. And the same goes true with energy. You know, if we really want to solve our economic problems, the first place to start is energy. If we would just cut our gasoline fuel consumption, gasoline and diesel consumption by 10%, $50 billion back in Americans' pockets every year. 10% reduction. You can get a 10% reduction in all kinds of ways. Carpooling, driving more efficient cars, driving cars more efficiently. But we've become, in politics and as a society, we've become opposed to anybody saying to us, it's our responsibility. It's drill, baby, drill. It's open up this or that. It's solve the problem. It's have somebody else do that. Not how can we help? And I'll open it up for questions after this. You know, when we face the existential threat of Nazi Germany and Japan, Roosevelt and Churchill did not come to their people and say, we are facing